What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to share a very interesting discovery with Black Ops 6, or with Call of Duty in general, and this is the fact that we can actually see our hidden skill ranking, and beyond that, we can actually see a bunch of data on every single match we have played on our accounts since Call of Duty Vanguard. And because of this, you can actually track that hidden skill rating over time, going back several years. And as far as my data goes, here's my skill ranking over time since the launch of Black Ops 6. Every one of these lines indicates a match that I've played, and this shows every single public match of Black Ops 6 I've played since the game launched, and what my exact skill rating was going into each of those games. So we're going to be taking a much deeper look at this throughout the video, and I'm going to point out a few observations that I've made regarding this. But before we do that, I want to show you guys how you can get this data for yourself. Now, there is a little bit of a process to it and a slight waiting period as well. It took about a day for me to get this data after sending the request. And I actually found out about this through one of my followers on Twitter. I failed many times on stream pronouncing his name, so I'm just going to put it on the screen right here. So big shout out to you. Thank you so much for pointing this out for me so I can share it with the community. But essentially, to get this data for yourself, you have to go to the Activision site. I will leave this link down below, and you want to submit a new request for your data. Then you pick your country, read all the terms and conditions, of course, and then you select your request type. And the one that you want here is access my personal information. And from there, it's going to get you to log into your accounts. And this is the official Activision website. So it is a secure site. This isn't some third-party thing. So you can log into whatever accounts you want there. For me, I play on PlayStation, so I had to log into my PlayStation account. And once you complete all these steps, you have now sent a data request. And for me, about a day later, I got an email with all of my data. Now, this is going to come in an HTML format, which is not ideal, but you can actually import this into something like Google Sheets, so it's in a spreadsheet, which is what I did, and then it's going to show you everything. All the data of every single match that you've played since Call of Duty Vanguard, it appears, which is pretty crazy to see. And keep in mind, this also contains all of your personal data, including your IP address and everything, so this isn't the type of thing you want to be sharing around. It's for your eyes only. But obviously, for the purpose of this video, I just deleted all of that data so you don't end up seeing it, and we're just seeing the actual match data. And the most interesting stat out of all of this is the skill stat, because this is something that has been previously hidden to us. Now, initially, when looking at this, I thought skill on this was the skill level of the lobby, but no, this does appear to be your skill ranking over time, which is honestly a bit unfortunate. I would personally rather see the lobby skill level that I was getting into in each of these matches, but unfortunately, you don't get access to that data, only your personal skill rating. So this unfortunately does limit our ability to fully analyze everything that's going on with the matchmaking system, for instance, and it's more so just an interesting value to be able to see and track for yourself. Although at the moment, I also don't have much context surrounding this skill number. I honestly don't know what a good skill rating is. I don't know what the maximum is, for instance. And that's actually one of the things that I wanted to ask from you guys. For anybody that does submit this and access their personal data, obviously I don't want you sharing your entire spreadsheet or anything with me, but if you do go through this process, I'd really appreciate if you could come back to this video and just let me know what your current skill rating is, as well as your overall elimination death ratio in Black Ops 6. Now, I know elimination death ratio doesn't necessarily paint the whole picture as far as what somebody's skill level is, but as far as a single stat goes that we have publicly available, it's probably the best stat that we have. And I'm just curious to see what kind of correlations may exist here when it comes to skill rating versus your elimination death ratio. And I'm also curious to know, like, how high can this get? I noticed for me, at least when I'm not doing testing, and I will be pointing out a few chunks where I was doing testing and it did drop my skill rating, and we'll talk about that. But if I'm not doing testing, I notice my skill rating tends to hover around the high 300s to low 400s, and I have hit a maximum skill rating at 436 personally. But I want to know, how high can that get? Does this cap out at 500 or 600 or 1,000? I honestly don't have a clue, and since I can't be accessing other people's personal data, that's why I'm left relying on you guys to come back here and leave this information in the comments. But with that out of the way, let's dive into my skill data over time since the launch of Black Ops 6. Keeping in mind, I did eliminate every single one of my custom game matches because those will show up as well. But in those, they're really easy to identify since your skill rating value for that is always 0. So I just deleted all of those from my spreadsheet. And that left me with all of my public matches that are available here. And the first thing I really wanted to see is if there was any sort of correlation with my kill-death ratio over time as well. So I also made a graph of that to overlay on top of this skill data. And I did cap it out at a 5KD. There are a bunch of matches where I did go over that 5KD value. And diving deeper, you might notice this chunk right here. This is actually when I was doing my double XP testing, where in these matches, I was literally getting 1 kill or elimination and then backing out, and then comparing my XP value after the match compared to before the match, which allowed me to isolate exact XP data. So that's why we're seeing this chunk here. And I noticed after this chunk, there was a pretty sharp decline in my skill rating, even when I started playing normally again, and even when I was playing well normally, it was still dropping over time. So that does seem to show that this is a rolling average over time. And even immediately after I started playing well, it didn't adjust my skill rating right away. And in fact, it still kept dropping until suddenly it just shot straight up. And this was quite surprising to me. From one match to the next, my skill value went from 198 all the way up to 385. And the interesting thing is, looking at the matches before that, I'd been playing well for several matches. I was getting between about a 2 to 4.5 kill death ratio in every one of those matches leading up to this. And yet it took a while for the skill rating to adjust, and then when it did, it was a very sudden adjustment. It nearly doubled immediately, and it's not like I had a really exceptional game the game before that, it was just another good game. So what this situation seems to show is if you are backing out of lobbies regularly for several games in a row, it does appear to drop your skill rating quite drastically over time. But then as you start performing well again for several games in a row, then it will immediately shoot right back up to where you belong, or at least where it thinks you belong based on all the data. Now, another thing I noticed, which isn't surprising at all, but I still wanted to point it out, your skill rating doesn't always perfectly correlate with how you performed in the recent matches, and that's likely due to the fact that we're also missing the lobby skill data. So what I noticed here is many times I would have a game where I performed fairly poorly. I was right around like a 1 kill death ratio, not really an exceptional game by any means, but my skill rating would go up after that game. Whereas I had other games where I performed very well. I had over like a 3 kill death ratio, lots of kills, very few deaths, and my skill rating would actually drop slightly after that game. And to me, it seems the missing factor there is the skill level of my opponents in those lobbies. And then the games where my skill rating went up, despite the fact that if you're just looking at my performance data in that match, it didn't look like I performed well. In those cases, I was likely in a very high skilled lobby, and therefore even just performing at that level meant that I was exceeding where my current skill level expected me to perform, and that's why my skill rating went up. Whereas in the other cases where I did really well, but my skill rating went down, it was likely in a very easy lobby that the game put me in, and it expected me to do even better than that, and because I didn't meet that expectation, it dropped down. And that's one of the big reasons I really wish we could have access to the lobby skill data as well. That would allow us to take a much deeper look at how the matchmaking systems are working and how this personal skill level is interacting with that. But unfortunately, that's not available. We used to have a public API, which would allow us to kind of see that data, or at least it would give us a collection of data that we could use to infer the skill level of the lobby. But I think they didn't like the fact that people were taking a deep look at that and breaking those things down and actually assigning values, especially on the Warzone end, to various lobbies and what the skill level of those lobbies were. What we have now is the best that we can get. And while on one hand, I like the fact that we can actually see our skill rating now, and I have wanted to see these values for a long time, without the extra context attached to that, there's only so much information we can really gather here. And it's one of the big reasons that I at least want to know what the value of this skill rating is. What is a good skill rating? What's a not so great skill rating? Where do I stand relative to the community? Since there's really no way of judging that properly just based on your performance in the game, due to the fact that the games are formed algorithmically based on your skill. And in saying that, I know I've said this many times over the years, I would love to be able to see this skill rating in the game, like in your combat record. It would be great to be able to track where you actually stand, just like we could in X-Defiant. I love tracking that value over time to see it go up and down, depending on my performance and the types of players I've been playing against. And with that, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to make sure I was spreading the word on this, so if you guys are interested in finding out what your skill rating is, or maybe you want to analyze a bunch of the other match data we've had collected since Call of Duty Vanguard, now you can do that. So again, the big thing I'm asking from you guys is if you do go through this data collection process, please, once you get your data, come back to this video, let me know what your skill rating is, as well as your elimination death ratio, if you don't mind sharing. And if you guys enjoyed this video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.